Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Kwe. Je reconnais que nous vous adressons la parole aujourd'hui depuis le territoire traditionnel non cédé du peuple algonquin Anishinaabe. Merci beaucoup de vous à nous joindre aujourd'hui. My name is Commander Kelly Williamson, and I'm your MC. Joining us today, we have the Honorable Anita Anand, Minister of National Defense, General Wayne Eyre, Chief of the Defense Staff, and Jody Thomas, Deputy Minister of National Defense. We are here today to apologize to all members of the defense team, past and present, who have experienced or been affected by sexual assault or sexual misconduct, including sexual harassment or discrimination based on sex, gender, gender identity, or sexual orientation in the workplace. Par les présentes excuses, nous souhaitons souligner l'importance de reconnaître ces préjudices, les expériences que vous avez vécues, ainsi que nos responsabilités. L'Honorable Anita Anand présentera ses excuses au nom du gouvernement du Canada. General Wayne Eyre will then speak and offer an apology on behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces to all those affected, including current and former members and veterans, and all current and former staff of the non-public funds Canadian Forces. Par la suite, la sous-ministre Thomas présentera ses excuses à l'ensemble de l'équipe de la Défense et en particulier aux employés civils d'hier et aujourd'hui au nom du ministère de la Défense nationale. Leurs allocations dureront environ 40 minutes. As our focus today is on supporting all those affected, including their loved ones and families, there will not be a formal Q&A following official remarks. And we also understand that the content of today's apology may be difficult for many, so we remind all current and former defense team members that they can access a variety of resources from our website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and links to support services are readily available in the online description. Nous comprenons qu'il pourrait être difficile pour certaines personnes d'entendre le contenu des excuses qui seront offertes aujourd'hui. C'est pourquoi nous vous rappelons que les membres anciens et actuels de l'équipe de la Défense peuvent tirer parti d'une gamme de services par l'intermédiaire de notre site web accessible en tout temps. Et des liens vers des services de soutien se figurent dans le programme de l'événement qui est présentement en ligne. We will now begin with the Honorable Anita Anand. Madame, à vous la parole.
Good afternoon. I am speaking to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I recognize that this land has long been a place of meeting and gathering for Indigenous people, and we join you in a spirit of respect and reconciliation. The members of our Canadian Armed Forces have always put service before self by stepping up to serve Canada. You come from all backgrounds, faiths, and ethnicities, and you have a diversity of gender identities and sexual orientations. Que ce soit pour protéger les Canadiens au pays ou à l'étranger, vous avez fait tout ce que votre pays vous a demandé. Over the past few years, all Canadians have been reminded of how crucial your work is here at home. You have saved lives in long-term care homes. You have delivered vaccines across the country, helped people facing forest fires and floods, and rescued those isolated by natural disasters. You have always had Canadians' backs, and we should always have yours. Vous avez toujours veillé au bien-être des Canadiens, et nous devrions toujours rassurer le vôtre. Far too many members of the Canadian Armed Forces, veterans, current and former employees of the Department of National Defense, and staff of the non-public funds have suffered sexual harassment, sexual assault, or discrimination based on sex, gender, gender identity, and sexual orientation. This misconduct and abuse of power led to a crisis of broken trust in the defense team. Beaucoup trop d'actuels et anciens membres des forces armées canadiennes, de vétérans, d'actuels et anciens fonctionnaires du ministère de la Défense nationale et d'employés des fonds non publics ont été victimes de harcèlement sexuel, d'agression sexuelle ou de discrimination fondée sur le sexe, le genre, l'identité de genre et l'orientation sexuelle. Cette inconduite et ces abus de pouvoir ont entraîné une crise de confiance et de liens brisés au sein de l'équipe de la défense. Today, as Minister of National Defense, I am apologizing to you on behalf of the Government of Canada. Aujourd'hui, en tant que ministre de la Défense nationale, je vous présente mes excuses au nom du gouvernement du Canada. We must acknowledge the pain and trauma that so many have endured because the very institution charged with protecting and defending our country has not always protected and defended its own members. I apologize on behalf of the Government of Canada and on behalf of those elected officials who, throughout the history of the Canadian Armed Forces, had the responsibility to protect you and who failed to do so. I apologize to the thousands of Canadians who were harmed because your government did not protect you, nor did we ensure that the right systems were in place to ensure justice and accountability. For far too long, your government failed to dedicate enough time, money, personnel, and effort to deal with sexual harassment, sexual assault, and discrimination based on sex, gender, gender identity, and sexual orientation in the military and the department. Countless lives have been harmed because of inaction and systemic failure. This is a failure that our Canadian Armed Forces, our department, and the Government of Canada will always carry with us. These institutions failed you, and for that, we are sorry. I am sorry. Il s'agit d'un échec que nos forces armées canadiennes, notre ministère et le gouvernement du Canada devront assumer à jamais. Ces institutions vous ont laissé tomber et pour cela, nous sommes désolés. Je suis désolée. I apologize to everyone affected, current and former National Defense employees and Canadian Armed Forces members, including veterans who suffered during and after their service, staff of the non-public funds, and members of the class action settlements, and your families. Pendant des décennies, le gouvernement du Canada n'a pas tenu sa promesse la plus fondamentale envers vous, vous qui faites tout pour servir notre pays. Je reconnais que les gouvernements au fil des ans sont loin d'avoir fait le nécessaire pour éradiquer ce fléau. Over many decades, the Government of Canada did not keep its most basic promise to you, you who do the utmost to serve our country. I acknowledge that successive governments have not done nearly enough to stamp out this scourge. To all Canadians who signed up to serve our country, full of hope, zeal, and spirit, to those who always dreamed of putting on a uniform and who answered the call of service only to find your own calls for help ignored, your calls for justice and dignity disregarded, and your faith in our institution betrayed. We are sorry. I am sorry. Nous sommes désolés. Aussi, je suis désolé. Today, we pledge this. Things can change. They must change. And I say it to you, they will change. This is our most basic responsibility, our most important task, and my top and absolute priority. Ce changement est en cours. À tous les niveaux, les gens travaillent dur pour créer un environnement de travail plus positif, permettant d'éliminer les aspects néfastes et régressifs de notre culture institutionnelle. I have seen the dedication of incredible leaders on our team, working to build trust, credibility, and moral authority. As minister, I am deeply committed to leading meaningful progress, and I know that up and down the ranks of our institution, there are people stepping up to lead deep and transformational culture change. Together, we are working to create an institutional culture that enables every member of our team to reach their full potential in an environment where they feel safe, protected, and respected. En tant que ministre, je suis pleinement déterminée à assurer la réalisation de progrès réels et je sais qu'à tous les échelons de notre institution, des personnes s'engagent à opérer un changement de culture profond et transformationnel. Ensemble, nous travaillons à créer une culture institutionnelle qui permet à chaque membre de notre équipe de réaliser son plein potentiel dans un environnement où il se sent en sécurité, protégé et respecté. I want to make this very clear. The Canadian Armed Forces and Department of National Defence form a crucial part of our nation's fabric. And it is a great honor for me to serve you as Minister of National Defence. To the people who make up our Canadian Forces and our department, we need you. Canada needs you. And I promise I will work hard every single day to earn your trust. Les Forces armées canadiennes et le ministère de la Défense nationale forment une partie intégrante de la structure de notre nation. Et c'est un grand honneur pour moi de vous servir en tant que ministre de la Défense nationale. Aux personnes qui composent les Forces armées canadiennes et notre ministère, nous avons besoin de vous. Le Canada a besoin de vous et je vais travailler fort chaque jour pour mériter votre confiance. Thank you, miigwech. Merci. I now invite Chief of the Defense Staff, General Wayne Eyre, to offer his remarks.
This is an important day that will be difficult for many. We are confronting and acknowledging a number of difficult truths. For far too long, too many members of the Canadian Armed Forces and Defence Team family have suffered harm and lived in fear of reprisal for reporting that harm. Far too many of you carry the burden of and have lived with experiences, some for decades now, of sexual assault, sexual harassment, discrimination, and exclusion based on your sex, your gender identity, or your sexual orientation. Ces comportements n'ont absolument aucune place au sein de notre institution. Et nous savons et reconnaissons que certains aspects d'exclusion de notre culture institutionnelle ne correspondent pas aux valeurs fondamentales que nous aspirons à défendre ni aux attentes des personnes que nous servons et protégeons. Cela doit changer. It takes an incredible amount of courage to step up to serve your country in the armed forces, to be willing to put service before self, to sacrifice much, perhaps all, for your fellow Canadians, to know the risks and still put your life in danger to protect the people and the country you love. You should expect to be safe from harm on your own base, wing, or ship, among others who wear the same uniform. But many of you suffered harm at the hands of your comrades in arms, people you should have been able to trust, des gens en qui vous deviez pouvoir avoir confiance, des gens qui étaient censés être un peu comme des membres de votre famille. In our line of work, in the profession of arms, trust can mean the difference between life and death. And we have betrayed that trust. Cette confiance a été trahie par des collègues et des dirigeants, et par cette institution, parce qu'un nombre insuffisant de mesures ont été prises pour y mettre fin. The harm has been done not just to members of the CAF and our veterans, but also to public service employees and to staff of the non-public funds, Canadian Forces, who serve alongside us. As someone who has given my entire life to this institution and who loves it so deeply, it breaks my heart. And today I offer my most profound apologies. On behalf of an institution that has failed you, on behalf of those who didn't listen, on behalf of every person who took no action, we profoundly and sincerely apologize. Mes excuses s'adressent à tous les membres de l'équipe de la défense, anciens et actuels, qui ont été blessés ou affectés par l'inconduite sexuelle, les personnes qui participent au recours collectif des Forces armées canadiennes et du ministère de la Défense nationale pour inconduite sexuelle et celles qui n'y participent pas. Nous reconnaissons ne pas avoir pris les mesures nécessaires pour assurer votre sécurité. I know some of you may have questions about my moral authority to deliver this apology, and I have asked those questions too, particularly because your leaders and those who preceded us did not make sufficient change. The harm you suffered happened on our collective watch, on my watch. Whether through naivety or ignorance, both inexcusable, the problem persisted. The harm continued, and it has yet to be successfully or sufficiently acknowledged or addressed. Nous avons, beaucoup trop lentement, pris conscience des conséquences désastreuses de cette situation sur notre personnel. Nous n'avons pas accompli le profond travail de transformation nécessaire pour changer notre culture ou pour nous attaquer aux enjeux culturels sous-jacents qui contribuent à l'inconduite sexuelle et aux autres formes de préjudice. Nous avons injustement imposé aux victimes le fardeau de changer les choses. Cela ne devrait pas être à vous de porter ce fardeau. It is with tremendous gratitude and respect that I acknowledge and thank all of those who've come forward to share their experiences in hopes of making positive change to our institution, and all those who supported others and those who have taken action to demand change within the CAF. Vous avez servi honorablement en cherchant à améliorer notre futur et à garantir un avenir meilleur pour nos effectifs. Nous vous avons laissé tomber. Nous avons déçu vos nombreux collègues qui ont servi et qui continuent de servir avec honneur. Nous avons déçu les Canadiens qui veulent être fiers de leur force armée, mais qui trouvent cela de plus en plus difficile. Chaque fois que de nouveaux actes de préjudice leur sont révélés. And the failure to prevent these harms has not only robbed many CAF members of their careers, but it has also robbed the CAF and the country we serve of so much potential. Des personnes exceptionnelles qui auraient pu constituer la prochaine génération de dirigeants, des marins, des soldats, d'aviateurs et d'aviatrices, d'opérateurs potentiellement talentueux, qui ne s'enrôleront jamais et ne découvriront jamais leur potentiel. To restore faith in our military, we must change our culture. We must build trust. There is no currency as difficult to earn or as easy to squander. It will take tangible actions to make real and lasting change. This time, we will not fail. This is my commitment to you. Mon engagement à vos familles et à vos proches, qu'ils souffrent à vos côtés. À la mémoire de nos coéquipiers qui ont souffert, mais ayant rendu l'âme, ne sont pas là pour entendre ces paroles. À nos collectivités et à notre pays. This work will be complex and difficult, and it demands a complete unity of purpose. It is work that we have already begun. Much of this work is the result of sustained efforts by survivors, the representative plaintiffs in the class actions, and those who supported them, advocacy groups and others, including a number of our own colleagues within the defense team who have devoted themselves to culture change. Because it's at the grassroots level where true and lasting change will take hold. As one survivor recently shared, change turns us inward. It causes us to look at ourselves, our beliefs, our moral compass, how we hear and interpret others. It teaches us to recognize our biases and challenge our cultural and societal views. I have spent a great deal of time reflecting on this institution, the cultural change we face, why our past efforts have failed to deliver the necessary results, and what we must do to break this cycle and forge a new path. J'ai eu du mal à concilier mes efforts, visant à m'assurer que les personnes affectées par l'inconduite jouissent du soutien empreint de compassion qu'elles veulent et dont elles ont besoin, tout en veillant à ce que les personnes accusées ou trouvées responsables d'avoir causé un préjudice soient traitées de manière proportionnelle, conformément à la procédure prévue par la loi. En tout temps, nous devons appuyer sur les survivants et agir avec empathie. Nous devons les écouter et réagir de façon appropriée. I understand from speaking with survivors that our institution's failure to adequately deal with cases often creates a sense of betrayal that is more devastating than the incident itself. You told us that you suffered alone, that you felt isolated and silenced, as though you had no one in your corner. I've read survivor testimony. I've heard of some of your experiences of being targeted for harassment, violence, and abuse, suffering incidents of hazing that were, in reality, sexual assault. Le fait d'avoir eu à prendre des mesures extraordinaires pour vous protéger, parce que personne d'autre ne s'occupait de vous. Certains d'entre vous ont fait savoir que vous êtes épuisé par les effets déshumanisants découlant des microagressions au quotidien et que, peu importe les efforts que vous constatez en vos affaires, que vous n'avez pas votre place dans nos rangs aux yeux de vos dirigeants et de vos coéquipiers. I've heard about members of the defense team whose potential has gone unfilled, whose sense of purpose has been diminished, whose dreams of a rewarding career of service to their country have been crushed, of members seeking the camaraderie of service who found instead hostility, betrayal, or worse, physical assaults. De voix de fait, portant atteinte à votre état d'esprit, à votre dignité et à votre humanité. And how, too often, your trauma was inflicted by someone in a position to make or break your career. Clear abuses of power. In a hierarchical institution where we profess to put our people first, this is beyond intolerable. And I've heard how the policies, processes, and programs we have in place to serve you have, in many cases, amplified your trauma. Nous ne pouvons et ne devons pas nous dissimuler ces vérités. On vous a trompé. On vous a blessé. Puis, lorsque vous avez tenté d'obtenir de l'aide, on vous a desservi. Personally, and on behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces, I am sorry. We sincerely apologize for the trauma that you have experienced. To those who suffered in silence, we are sorry. To those who shouted until you could shout no more, at great personal risk, only to have no one listen to you, we are sorry. To those who came forward and were told to be quiet, to not rock the boat, to think of your career, or to prioritize the career of the person who harmed you, we are sorry. À toutes les personnes s'étant manifestées qui, au lieu de recevoir du soutien, ont plutôt dû faire face à des représailles, nous sommes désolés. À toutes les personnes qui ont milité sans relâche en faveur d'un changement et qui se sont trouvées déçues à maintes reprises, nous sommes désolés. We apologize for the harm that has been done to you, to your careers, and to your dreams. And we acknowledge that as you have suffered, so have those around you, your families, friends, and all those who love and support you. For this too, we sincerely apologize. We are sorry. Every day, people wearing the uniform of the Canadian Armed Forces serve proudly all over the world. They're defending Canada and its interests and the values and principles we as Canadians cherish, including, fundamentally, the right of every person to be treated with respect and dignity. Lorsque des membres de l'équipe de la défense ne sont pas traités avec respect et dignité au sein de leur propre base, de leur propre escadre, à bord de leur propre navire et durant des déploiements, notre hypocrisie institutionnelle est manifeste et les sentiments de trahison vifs. Je m'assurerai que le moment présent marque un tournant. This apology is not the end. Instead, we hope it is an important step forward. We are committed to listening and to learning from those who can teach us, and to doing so with humility, respect, and compassion. We will make mistakes. There will be setbacks, and there may be more difficult truths that we need to confront. Some of our new initiatives will miss the mark. These are issues that invariably come with change. But we will be honest and transparent about mistakes in order to learn quickly and continue to move forward together towards our goal of a defense team where everyone feels welcomed, supported, empowered, and inspired each and every day. Nous avons tous un rôle à jouer. Nous savons qu'en réalité, nous devons réaliser un profond changement transformateur, lequel vise les fondements mêmes de notre organisation et se répand à l'échelle de notre culture, nos comportements, nos attitudes et nos croyances. It's a tall order, a daunting task, the greatest challenge of our times, because it is existential. Our relevance, our effectiveness as a military force, our continued value to Canada and Canadians depends on our success in acknowledging and ending harm. I am convinced that we can succeed. The day I stop believing this is the day I can no longer serve. We can make the Canadian Armed Forces an example for the 21st century. Nous devons nous fonder sur les éléments de notre culture, qui valent la peine de célébrer. Les traditions axées sur l'idéalisme, le courage, le fait de faire partie de quelque chose de plus grand que soi, et changer les éléments d'exclusion, afin de nous améliorer davantage, afin de devenir une force militaire résiliente, forte et adaptable, prête à faire face à un avenir imprévisible et de plus en plus dangereux. Ready to meet any threat, any challenge, anywhere in the world. Ready to defend Canada and Canadians as the threats to our security multiply. Because at the heart of that strength, resilience, and adaptability is the very best talent and energy this vast, diverse country can offer. Certes, nous ne pouvons pas changer le passé, mais nous pouvons changer le présent et l'avenir des forces armées canadiennes. The will to do better, be better, is real. We will harness this energy and turn it into tangible, human-centric, trauma and survivor-informed action. Voilà le parcours qui nous attend. We owe nothing less than this to you, to all members of the defense team, to Canadians, and to the future of this force and this country. Thank you. Merci. Megwich. I'll now invite my colleague, Deputy Minister Thomas, to deliver her portion of today's apology.
Thank you, Minister Anand. General Eyre. Good afternoon. Today I would like to directly address all persons who have been harmed by sexual harassment, sexual assault, and discrimination based on sex, gender, gender identity, or sexual orientation while working in the past or present at the Department of National Defence, in the Canadian Armed Forces, or as part of the staff of the non-public funds Canadian Forces. This includes friends, families, and colleagues. I especially want to recognize the class members of the Canadian Armed Forces and Department of National Defence Sexual Misconduct Class Action, whether you've submitted a claim or have chosen not to. This apology is to all of you. En ma qualité de sous-ministre de la Défense nationale, je souhaite présenter des excuses officielles pour les préjudices causés par les inconduites sexuelles au sein du ministre de la Défense nationale du Canada. Malgré les efforts qu'ils ont consentis, mon organisation et sa direction, de concert avec les dirigeants des Forces armées canadiennes, n'ont pas réussi à protéger nos effectifs, le personnel des FAC et les employés du personnel des fonds non publics contre une large éventail de comportements dommageables. To all of you who've been excluded, harassed, humiliated, demeaned, or assaulted while working in the Department of National Defence or harmed by persons who work within the Department of National Defence, I sincerely apologize. To all who faced reprisals or retaliation when you tried to report your experience or seek assistance, I sincerely apologize. To those who've been told explicitly or implicitly that your safety did not or does not matter, that you were not an equal part of this defense team, that you had done something to deserve what you had experienced, or that you were not important enough for your experience to be seriously credited, examined, or addressed, I sincerely apologize. If you as a parent, spouse, partner, or child, or other family member have witnessed and absorbed the enduring pain of watching a loved one or friend carry the burden of their lived experience for days, months, years, or decades, I sincerely apologize. Si en tant que témoin d'une conduite sexuelle, vous vous êtes senti impuissante après avoir vu la façon dont les dirigeants ont réagi ou n'ont pas réagi, je m'excuse sincèrement. Et à tous les membres actuels et passés de l'équipe de la défense, je suis vraiment désolée qu'en raison de l'inaction de nos deux institutions, un sentiment d'autorité mal appliqué et une dynamique de pouvoir malsain soit présente depuis bien trop longtemps au sein du ministère de la Défense nationale et des Forces armées canadiennes. For too many, that reality has resulted in a workplace that was not safe, supportive, and respecting of all persons. Today, I also apologize for my institution's role in exacerbating harm to our employees, members, and staff, including systems that were designed with the intention to help, but instead created barriers to affected persons. In too many cases, willful disregard or entitled obliviousness have worsened the impacts of harm. In this defense team, people, emboldened by a misguided sense of authority, power, or privilege, have caused great harm to those within their authority or their immediate team. There is no possible justification for such a betrayal of trust and responsibility. This betrayal is all the more distressing in an organization such as ours, where trust, honor, and teamwork are fundamental to why and how we serve Canadians. As leaders collectively, we did not consistently and adequately hold such persons to account. In some cases, we permitted them to move to a different job, to do different damage, and to perpetuate the cycle of toxicity and harm elsewhere. For this failure, I truly apologize. J'offre mes excuses avec humilité et j'éprouve une tristesse profonde face à la grande souffrance infligée. Par ailleurs, je ne m'attends aucunement à ce que mes mots suffisent pour réparer les préjudices résultants. Les paroles que j'offre ne sont qu'une des nombreuses actions futures encore visent à corriger les torts passés et actuels, ainsi qu'à appuyer chacun dans son cheminement vers la guérison dans la mesure du possible. I can't and I won't speak for anyone else, nor pass judgment on anyone's decision to speak or not speak about their own truth. We must all process our own experiences and act upon them according to what is right for us. Speaking personally, during my career, I've witnessed misogyny, homophobia, hazing, exclusion, open contempt, and abuse of authority of varying degrees that was typically justified under the guise of feeding a esprit de corps. When I reflect upon my own service in the Navy, I struggle with my own decisions decades ago to simply ignore behavior directed at me, and that was rooted in misapplied sense of power. I knew that if I had complained, if I had made a fuss, then I would not have been allowed to participate, that women would have been considered weak, and that we couldn't take it. And so I endured what was happening to me and around me, hoping to prove that I was tough enough and deserved to be there, like so many of my colleagues. I didn't understand at the time that such behavior was not about me, but rather about power and the abuse of it. No person who has experienced harassment or abuse of any kind in this defense team should believe themselves at fault or be made to feel at fault by any member or part of either institution. We will do what is right for those harmed and for the future of national defense. The defense team already has work underway to propose fundamental changes to key elements of Canadian Armed Forces systems, processes, and governance. This includes the way we prevent and address sexual misconduct, provide support for those who've been subjected to it, strengthen military justice, and better ensure military and civilian institutional alignment to protect those who work within this organization. As we move ahead, we commit that we will be more consultative, collaborative, and transparent in terms of our approach, more conscious of our actions and the outcomes we are seeking. At our collective core, we all want a strong, safe, and united team that stands up for what is right and good and takes to heart our duty to care for one another, not just through our words or aspirational statements, but in our actions. Such a culture of inclusion, of true team spirit will flourish when we, as individuals and as a collective, choose to put aside behaviors that are not in our team's or our country's best interests. When we accept that this change is not a nice to have, but an imperative to achieve. Through each of us committing to do what is right as individuals, by holding one another accountable, the people behind the department and the Canadian Armed Forces will ensure that we have the institutional willpower to implement and follow through on what needs to change. We can do this. I know we can. And together, we can create a respectful, safe, and enduring defense team culture which all of us and all Canadians can be proud. Miigwech, merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister Thomas. This concludes today's event. Merci à toutes les personnes qui se sont joints à nous aujourd'hui, with a particular recognition to all those members of the defense team, past and present, who have been harmed by sexual misconduct while serving our country. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.